Hey y'all, this is Troy Black. So I want to tell you about some pranks that I played when I was a little kid when I was younger. But at the end of this video, if you watch the end, I'm going to tell you the prank that convinced me to stop playing pranks. One of the pranks that I would do all the time was I had 5 siblings growing up. I would come into the kitchen when someone was making themselves food, especially when they were like preparing cereal. And so they would get the bowl, you know, pour the cereal, the milk in there, and then they would pour the cereal in there and they would lean into the fridge to grab the milk, or maybe they were leaning into the fridge to get mustard or ketchup for a burger or something, whatever it was. Whenever they left their plate on the table, I would like walk by, grab the plate, put it behind my back and walk into another room and put it on a shelf somewhere. Anyways, it got old really fast, but I never stopped doing it because I thought it was hilarious. Another prank that I played one time that was awesome, of course my brother didn't think it was that great, but I had one of the original Xboxes, and so anyways, I brought him into the room one time and I said, hey, Reese, the disk drive can open and shut when you tell it to. And so I said, open, and then the little disk drive opened, and then I said, shut, and it shut. And so he was convinced. He really believed it. And so I told him, why don't you try? And so he started trying to talk to it or whatever, and I was like, you gotta get closer because it can't hear you. And so he's standing over it saying, open, open, open. And I think he even got our sisters to try it too. Anyways, the whole time I had the Xbox controller in my pocket and I was pushing the open and close button. Yeah, that was a good one. Another one my wife reminded me of was a time when you can tell that I wasn't the nicest brother in the world, but in the end, I kind of learned my lesson, and I'll get to that in a second. My wife recently reminded me that of a time when I played a prank on all of my siblings. And they actually told her about this, I think probably before we got married. Basically, I got a cardboard box and I would bring them into my parents' garage one at a time and say, okay, guess what? I've figured out how to move things with my mind. And so I would have this box like set up on, we had like a weight bench in there, I'd have it set up on the weight bench and it would just be sitting there and I would like move my hand and all of a sudden it would like fly off of the weight bench and like slide a little bit across the floor. It was pretty convincing, I would have to say. What I had done was I had put one of those like Tyco RC cars, those little like remote control vehicles like inside of the box, and it was one with a big rubber wheel so it didn't make a lot of noise. And so I had the controller in my pocket, and whenever I would like move my hand, it would like drive a little bit in the box and knock it off the shelf. It looked pretty good, but after a while, I think my brothers and sisters stopped believing me because I was playing all these pranks on them. Another prank that I pulled one time was I had one of those big plastic toy cash registers. It had like the real like working calculator on it, and like it had a button that would open the register and you could put the fake money in there and close it. I brought my siblings in the room and I told them, okay, I think aliens are trying to communicate with us through the cash register. And I put it up on this shelf and I said, okay, wait, at the specific time, they always try to communicate through the numbers on the screen. And all of a sudden the numbers would start to appear on the screen and it would start to beep like somebody is pushing the buttons, but no one was touching it. And so all of a sudden the numbers are flashing across the screen and then they would change and everyone's standing there like, oh my gosh. I don't know if they really believe that aliens were trying to communicate with us, but I really pushed that idea. Anyways, I had figured out that we had one of those electricity balls, and whenever you turned it on and it was within a few feet of the cash register, it would start going nuts and like, I think it would send like electrical surges or something through it or whatever was happening. So I turned the electricity ball on, you know, while they weren't looking, and then it would start going crazy. Another thing that I would do when I was really young is, this is horrible, by the way. Don't ever do this. If you're young and you have siblings, please don't do this. Especially don't do this later on in life. I would set up a little shop with little baskets, and then I would put all my toys in there, and I would sell my toys to my siblings for real money. You know, like I would put little prices on them and say like, this is 75 cents, this is 50 cents, this is like $1 or whatever. And so they would bring their money and they would buy these toys from me because I had a ton of little toys. What I would end up doing is, about 5 or 6 months later, when they would forget that they had bought the toys from me, these toys that had been mine for like several years, I would go and get them back out of their rooms and like set them back up and resell them. Worst brother ever. That's all I can say. Please don't ever do that. I think I need to go back and write letters of apology to all of my siblings, like as a grown man, and say, I'm sorry that I treated you so bad when we were young. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I did that. I hope my kids don't watch this video. Another prank that I would play all the time, I would get sets of clothing, you know, like the shirt and the pants and like a jacket and a hat and everything, and I would stuff it with a bunch of other clothes and stuffed animals and things and make it look like a real person. And then I would set it up somewhere, maybe in a chair, or really the place that really got people was I would like hang it out of like a drawer or something, or like make a person and have them like laying halfway like in the closet, you know, like they've like passed out or something. Anyway, just to give somebody a fright when they walked in the room. Obviously, I wouldn't do that now because I'm not, because I realize that you can actually scare people and it's not really a good thing. But anyways, the reason I kind of got over pulling pranks on people though, I kind of took that prank to the max one day. So what I did was, I got my little sister who, she was probably, Lydia, she was probably about 6 or 7 years old, you know, not very old, maybe like 5. Anyways, so I got her to get dressed in a set of clothing that she had, that I think she had a matching pair or something that looked very similar. And so what I did was, she got dressed in this set of clothing and I dressed up a dummy in the exact same set. So it looked like, you know, an identical twin. We put together this little play. And so I told my mom, I was like, Mom, come in and watch the play that me and Lydia are putting on. So we like put together this play where she is like a cop and I'm like the bad guy or whatever. And so we're like fighting and stuff in the room, and then we climb up on top of this bunk bed. And I've set up like blankets and pillows in the front of the bunk bed so you can't really see what's going on up there. And so my mom is on one side of the room sitting in this chair watching, and she thinks it's just a harmless little play that we put on or whatever. I've instructed my little sister, at one point I'm gonna make it look like we're fighting or whatever, and then we fall down behind the blankets and sheets, and so my mom can't see what's going on. All of a sudden, I take the hat that she's wearing off and I put it on the dummy or whatever. So I pick up the dummy and shake it like I'm shaking my little sister, and then I toss her off of the top of the bunk bed across the room, like into the wall. In my mind beforehand, as I'm thinking through this prank that I'm gonna play on my mom, I think to myself, her reaction is gonna be so funny. And I am just gonna laugh my head off, and it's gonna be the funniest thing that anyone has ever done, and she won't believe how funny it's gonna be. In fact, it was exactly the opposite, because as soon as the dummy is in the air, suddenly I'm looking at my mom and a burst of tears shoot out of her eyes, and immediately she just goes into shock mode. Wow. Tears everywhere, and all of a sudden it hits me. Like a scene in a movie when somebody suddenly realizes the awful truth of what they've done and the camera zooms in on them. Wow. I basically realized I was the worst son ever at that moment. And immediately, obviously, I said, Mom, Lydia's here, that's not the real Lydia. Yeah, that's pretty much the prank that convinced me that pranks can be, you can take them a little too far. I've actually seen that same prank pulled on YouTube years later, after I had already thought of it and done it. I'm sure I wasn't the first person to think of it, but watching those videos later, I'm just like, why would somebody do that to like their wife or their mother or anybody, you know? I guess I can't get too mad since I did the same thing when I was little. That's sort of a synopsis of some of the pranks that I played when I was little and dumb. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do play pranks on people, please try to think through it beforehand and try not to do anything too mean. Anyways, see y'all next time.